Everything I talk about and everything I understand and see and try to have conversations with people about revolves around a single act of inward looking. A single act of inward looking. And as I might have mentioned last night or not, that act is all I really have to offer. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of theories and a lot of opinions about the act, its effectiveness, and the reasons why, and so forth and so on. But those are all beside the actual point, which is the act itself. I call the act looking at yourself. And it turns out to be damnably hard to instruct people exactly what it is that I am referring to when I suggest to them that they look at themselves with an act of inward looking. It turns out that for the most part, as time goes on, if people stick with me, they do try to perform that act, and they do succeed, although they don't always know that that's happened, and their life begins to get better, and after a while they see what has happened and how profound it is, what the profound effect has been on their own relationship with their life. And that's with them never even exactly understanding what it is I'm talking about when I suggest that, and often, as I said, not even knowing that they've succeeded, since success is such how can I call it, a subtle, of extremely short duration, a fraction of a second perhaps, and the effects take time to play out. So I've started, when I say I've started, I think I've done it twice now in online meetings, and I'm going to continue trying to do this as time goes on, and I'd like you to understand. Everything I do, all the work that I do in kind of collaboration with you. Not as somebody presenting you something that's the case and you need to believe it, and you need to act on it, and you need to understand what I think, and so forth and so on. But everything I do is kind of in collaboration with you, so that the things that I do change over time as I have this relationship with all of you, and I hear back from you, and so forth and so on. So this too is going to change over time, and in the course of, like, not immediately, but before the retreat is over, I'd appreciate any feedback as to the effectiveness of what I try to do here. Not of the act itself, but of what I try to do in leading you to the act. So I'm going to try to show you directly what it is I'm talking about when I say look at yourself, which is the act that I claim will bring an end to the sense of alienation and distrust and disaffection with your own life. Not instantly, but over time. A place to start is what I exactly mean by an act of inward looking. So I'm going to try in the course of this to show you exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about an act of inward looking. And I'm going to try to show you how you have the capacity and the capability to perform this, and that you already know you do. But I'm going to try to point out to you the capability you have that is used in this act itself. Now, this isn't a really mysterious or mystical thing going on here. This is ordinary human psychology and the ordinary human control or lack of control over what happens within their own minds. It's not mystical. It's very practical. So what I'd like you to do is close your eyes and just relax a little. And as I talk to you with your eyes closed, I want you to try as best you can to do what it is that I'm asking you to do. And it's pretty easy. This isn't rocket science here. First of all, I'd like you to notice the fact that you have a capacity to focus your attention, that you actually can choose where to put your attention, and you can hold your attention on some particular phenomenon, not necessarily all the time, but you can hold it strongly enough that the rest of the kind of ocean of sensation and thought that is present in your consciousness is in the background, and what you're putting your attention on is in the foreground. It's not an effort to black out everything and be fully and totally aware only of one thing. It's just to recognize that as a human being, we, in our day-to-day lives, actually use this capacity that we have, this power that we have, all the time. The moving of attention from one object to another at will. And what it feels like is this. I want you to, right now, your attention, I hope, is on my voice, primarily. You know, everything else is still there, but your attention is focused on my voice. My voice is, your attention is focused on my voice, not that everything else disappears, but that's what you're paying close attention to, my voice. Now, I want you to move your attention from the sound of my voice, although you, of course, will still hear it in the background and be able to follow it. But I want you to move your attention from the sound of my voice to your breath. And what I want you to do is I want you to just look and see what it feels like to be breathing. And then I want you to start counting your breath on the out-breath. The out-breath is a good place to do the count. So what I want you to do is I want you to move your attention to your breath. Notice the way that it comes in and out of your body. And then at some point, when at the particular out-breath, start counting the out-breath. And I'm going to sit here and let you do this for a little while. Not a whole long time, but a little while. And if you lose count, don't worry about it. Just go back to 1. So, starting now, begin to count. Keep your attention on the feel of your breath and count the out-breath. And I'm doing it along with you. Notice as you do it that it takes some moments of time to understand what it is that I'm asking you to do, a little bit more time to actually find the feeling I am directing you to, and then a little bit more time just to settle in to focusing on it. Okay? That act that we just performed is an act of inward looking. That's what I'm speaking of when I speak of an act of inward looking. It's a looking with your mind's eye. It has nothing to do with vision, nothing to do with appearance or anything of the kind. It's just a figure of speech. That's an act of inward looking. In this case, it's an act of inward looking at a moving object, kind of, your breath, and the intermittent moments of the end of the out-breath, the beginning of the end of the out-breath. Now, again, keeping in mind that it will take a short period of time for you to understand what it is I'm going to ask you to look at, and then a little more time to settle into the feel of it and to settle into the feel of it. Understanding also that you're not eliminating your awareness of everything else that's going on in your consciousness. It's still there. It need not distract you. It's just there. And we're going to look at something a little different now. Again, I want you to close your eyes. And now, as you're attending to the sound of my voice and the instructions that I'm giving, now I want you to move the focus of your attention to the feel of your tongue relaxed in your mouth. Now, I've chosen the tongue. I don't think it's a common meditation object, but I've chosen the tongue because most of the time, we don't even know it's there, unless we're eating with it or we bite it or something like that. And yet, when attention is focused on it, it turns out to have a very dense kind of sensation associated with its relaxed state. And so there. So now just move your attention. See if you can get the feel of what your tongue feels like in its relaxed state lying in your mouth. Just the feel. And now, keeping your eyes closed and remembering, keeping in mind that what I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to now is something that will take you a little while to understand what I'm suggesting, a little while to find the sensation itself, and then a little while to settle into it. I want you to see if you cannot move your attention to what it feels like to be you. Just you. Not the activities, not the thoughts, just you. It's what it's felt like to be you always. It's never changed. It's just you. The feel of you. And that's it. That's all there is. That's it. That moment of trying to get the taste of what it feels like to be you is the act of inward looking that I speak about all the time. Now, since it's you, it's not some particular state of mind, it's not some particular thought, it's not your tongue, it's not your breath. Since it's you, it seems absurd even to consider the possibility that you could fail to do this. It is you. It's always been you, always the same. When you were a child, it was you, what it felt like to be you. Right now, it's what it feels like to be you. It is extremely subtle, and it is impossible to hold attention on. The actual the conscious reception of the experience doesn't always happen. It's too quick. Now we do this not in order to gain some new understanding of your nature. Your nature is fundamentally too profoundly simple to have much understanding associated with it at all. And we don't do this to find some new understanding of your nature or to rid you of some old understanding of your nature that's false. We do this for kind of medicinal purposes only. The effect of this looking is profound and far beyond the momentary sensation that you might feel. It kind of feels like your face, except not your face, but it feels like face, the front of you. What we have discovered, and what has been borne out now by, I have to say, thousands of people, is that simple act, that one simple act of inward looking, two things about it. One is that if you succeed, you won't know it, probably. It's too subtle, too fleeting, too unimportant, too insignificant, this view of you. But the other is that even if you feel that you haven't succeeded, even if you have the sense that it's a waste of time or there's nothing to be gotten from it at all, the chief confirmation that you actually have succeeded in that first touch is that you'll try to do it again and again and continuous, not like continuously, but again and again. Maybe days between them, maybe hours between them. But you'll try to do it again despite any idea that it's worthless. That's the sign. That's how you can know that you succeeded in the first place. What this act accomplishes, and as I said in the beginning, I have a whole body of theories and ideas and thoughts about why this would be so and how it transpires and what comes of it and all of that, how it fits into everything and all of that. But that's all beside the point. That's just my understandings and limited by my capacity to express it and by my capacity to even have an understanding of it. But what does seem to happen, without regard to why or how, is that over time, the psychological mechanisms that have served to keep you trying to stay apart from your own life, those psychological mechanisms begin to disappear. Nothing new appears. So there's no arriving of some state or some clarity or anything of the kind that says, oh, now I'm done. I'm fixed. I'm finished. Hallelujah, praise God, and so forth. Nothing like that happens. Things disappear. Psychological structures and mechanisms begin not to show up when you would expect them to show up because of circumstances that trigger them. This gradual disappearance of neurotic psychological mechanisms ends the sense of being apart from and at odds with and distrustful of your own life. That whole sense of a gap between you and your life. That whole sense of life being held at arm's length so you can keep an eye on what happens and what comes and what goes. That disappears. As the psychological mechanisms that produce it disappear, that disappears. That people consistently report being in love with their lives, as they also consistently report that their lives are no easier, no more, no smarter, no clearer, no more, no less filled with problems and confusions and difficulties and all the other things that human life and all life has to contend with. Also not lacking in pleasure and moments of clarity and moments of exhilaration and so forth and so on, that also probably all lives, human or otherwise, consist in. But that one of the most profound things that disappears and vanishes is the idea that there's something wrong with your life. That there's something fundamentally wrong with your life that needs to be changed, that needs to be gotten rid of. And, or that that I have to escape from this life, that this life is going to chew me up. What it is replaced with is a deep and profound satisfaction and a sense of fulfillment that comes from the natural state of abiding interest and love of the life itself, with all of its content, with all of its craziness, with all of its beauty, with all of its everything. The life itself almost seems to swallow you up. The distinction between you and the life disappears. And what is seen finally and what is reported consistently is that this life is exactly what I always wanted. This life, just as it is, with all of its craziness, with all of its contradiction, with all of its wonder, deep, deep wonder, is exactly what I have always been trying to find in all of my efforts to escape from this life and the vicissitudes, the changes of this life. So that's what's reported. That's what I report. That's what Carla reports. And that's what a growing number of people actually all around the world report. The reports of success in this work are unlike anything you have ever seen. They are not reports of, oh my God, everything's clear. I've got it all. I'm at peace. I have total equanimity. I have no thought. I am emptiness. I am pure awareness. I am bliss. You don't hear any of those kind of reports from people who have engaged in this work. You hear reports that are human and recognizably human. The experience of life as a human being. Reports of the difficulties of life that in the past have seemed to swamp and overpower the person's self. Those difficulties, part of the deep, rich fabric of life itself. You hear reports along those lines. Nothing is solved. Nothing is solved. Nothing is finished. There is no finish here. None. Life endlessly moves, expresses itself, rises and falls. So, if I was at all skillful this morning, And if you followed me at all closely, then it is almost certain that even if you never have before, that you already have taken this just one book. That's all it takes, whether you know it or not. And this act, this here, is all I have to offer. The rest of what I have to offer is a kind of capacity to be supportive and clarify things and share with you my understanding of why this works and how it works and what it means and so forth and so on. But all of the discussions that we have in that regard are entirely beside the point of the act itself. The act really doesn't need that. If you perform the act and then go on about your business and never figure out anything about it or have anybody suggest anything about it, you will find yourself home, safe and secure, sane in your own life. Okay? So you can take the sign off the door. Somebody take the sign off the door. Helen? Helen's got it. And one of the things that for me, like these retreats are food and drink and education for me. It was during retreats that everything I have seen has come to light. During retreats with all of you, talking together, arguing even, conversing. And so I have my own kind of a goal for what I want to accomplish in this retreat, in this time with you, and that is to find a skillful way of answering that young man's question that I told you about last night. And those of you who were not here, when Carl and I were setting up, a young man came into the room and came up to me and he said, "So what's all this about anyway?" And I was quite taken aback because I realized that I had no idea what to say to that question to someone who had not already been, kind of indoctrinated by being part of this in the first place. I was stymied. And I said, "Well, actually, it's just about you," which is true enough. But he said, "Oh, I know all about that," and walked out the door. I think that what he was referring to was the whole kind of Advaita Vedanta view of you and what you are about. And he knows all about that and wasn't interested in it, so he kind of just booked and left. My goal in this retreat, for me, is to develop some way to be able to answer that question to anybody that comes to me cold and says it to me. And I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that, but I do know how I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it by talking to you and listening to you and do what we always do, and with that in the back of my mind, and something will appear. I'll get what I came here for. and so will you. So I might as well just say something about why I believe this act works and what I think it does, so that we can have something to talk about. The act isn't, you can't talk about it really, I believe that pretty much every human being, maybe not every human being, but pretty much every human being is is afflicted with this thing that I call the fear of life, and I believe it happens at the moment of birth. There are those who disagree with that. There are those who actually do agree with that who are in a completely different. Freud, for example, felt that to be the case. I think it happens at the moment of birth. I think that it is a consequence of human beings having such a vivid and alive, vibrant sense of self-consciousness, so that in the trauma that is associated with the birth process, we are stricken by a moment of terror in all the traumatic experiences going on that causes us we're just infants, no understandings of any kind whatsoever except silent ones. And it causes us automatically to contract and move away from all of this experience that's happening to us out of nowhere. The terror strikes. We contract, and from that moment on, the context of the development of our psychology is established. The context, and by psychology I mean our personality and psychological mechanisms and all of that. The context of the development of our psychology is established in that one moment of terror and contraction. From then on in, everything we do, everything we learn within the context of the unspoken sense that life is not to be trusted, that it's dangerous, treacherous, that it seems to hold such great promise, but it never fulfills it, never pays off, never. And that's the context in which we learn to relate to one another, to relate to the things that we do and don't do, the way we make our living, the way we decide to live our lives, and so forth and so on. A context of distrust and disaffection with the life itself. A context that has as its basis the view that something has to be done to save me from the extreme danger that life presents to me. I have to find some way to make myself safe from it, or some way to escape from it. We seem to, then every sensation, every thought, every event that appears within our minds, within our consciousness, we look at from the standpoint of, is this thing a threat to me? Is this something I have to do something about lest it swallow me up? Or is this thing something that is going to give me the secret, or at least make me capable of living my life in happiness and warmth and comfort and the like? Is this something good, or is this something bad? And if it's something bad, then I'm going to do my best to kill it off or escape from it. And if it's something good, I'm going to do my best to try to get it. Some way or another, try to get it. And the other category of things that we are capable of putting things in is the category of things in which most everything else falls. Most everything falls, which is those about which we don't have any interest at all. They're beside the point to us. But everything that comes, every moment of the day, every new unrecognized sensational experience or thought or emotional arising, everything that comes we look at and instantly decide whether I need to guard against this thing, try to get this thing, or I can safely ignore it. That's the way we go through our lives, watching the life, trying to be careful, trying to get what we can and save ourselves from the knives and bullets and things that seem to comprise a lot of the things that come to us. We try to make ourselves into good people, honorable people, honest people, because we come to believe that that's the road to salvation from life's horrors. We might not entirely believe it, but it's worth a shot. And that's the way we go. until we fall into the grave at the end of it. Never having actually, most of us, this isn't true like 100% for the human species, but pretty darn close. Most of us live our lives like that, never tasting the actual substance and texture and depth and satisfaction that life naturally has to offer without alteration of any kind whatsoever. We happen upon suggestions, like my suggestion, you look at yourself, that'll fix you up. We happen upon suggestions that are religious, psychological, spiritual, metaphysical, physical, all kinds of suggestions that have appeared within the species over the thousands of years that we've been trying to do this. And if we're attracted to them, we'll try those things and play them out to the end of their to see what it is that they actually do offer. And sometimes we'll play them out for the rest of our lives in a movement of kind of retraction and hiding into some idea that might save us. Never do we ever taste directly the deep fulfillment and satisfaction that human life, just as it is, has to offer. It has to offer that to us precisely because of our vivid, vibrant, alive sense of self-consciousness, the sense of being something, of existing as something in particular. So, what I see to be the greatest gift of human life, which is precisely that sense of self-consciousness, that sense of vivid and vibrant knowing that I exist as something in particular. Something in particular. I see that to be the great gift of the evolution of a human consciousness. And that great gift turns into the very thing that has caused the fundamental departure from a healthy way of living our lives at all. And it's not surprising then that we come to demonize the sense of self-consciousness itself if we get sufficiently advanced in our understanding of things. If we weren't so self-conscious, the trauma of birth would be quickly forgotten. It wouldn't be associated with some particular creature, me. That's the particular creature, me. The terror strikes quickly the young human, and it also fades quickly. The terror, the big hugeness of, my God, what am I doing here? What? And of course, if we had words, we probably wouldn't be so terrified. But that goes away pretty quickly. But it leaves kind of like, I kind of see this to be analogous to the cosmic background radiation that came from the Big Bang. You can't even see it. You don't even know it's there. It takes extremely subtle and exquisite instruments even to detect it, and an extremely advanced understanding of these things to know even to look for it. But what it resolves itself into is a kind of background of anxiety, a discontent, a disaffection. Not even enough to be defined in such succinctness as that. It's just a background, a kind of a throbbing of anxiety, almost the capacity for anxiety. It's that in the background, always there, always there. And we get used to it and pay it no mind. It's just there. God knows what it is. It's just this feeling Anxiety. I don't know any other way to say it, although it's more subtle than what we might think of as anxiety. But everybody knows it. Everybody knows it's there. And that anxiety, that background of anxiety, is precisely the context, then, of our conscious life. The context of our conscious life is this background anxiety, that from which the need to distrust everything, to seek some escape or some transcendence or some transformation of the life, some way to make things different, make bad things go away and good things stay. It's that context that creates that. And so long as the context is in place, everything that comes in is hijacked by that concept and put to the purpose and the project of identifying and protecting me against the threats, identifying and informing me of the promises, and identifying and let me know I don't have to worry about all the rest of it. Everything that comes is put to that test because it comes into this context. All of the psychological mechanisms that appear within this context. The psychological mechanisms of, all the things we do that are crazy and psychological in nature. Psychology isn't always crazy. It is pretty much always crazy when the psychology is the psychology of the context of the fear of life. But it doesn't need to be. And the personality forms as the sum total of those psychological mechanisms and those psychological traits and those reactive, neurotic habits of relationship and so forth. And it's, like there's tens of thousands of those things, always in play, always moving, always coming and going. And that's our personality. That's the face we put to the world. That distorted psychological swamp of things that are trying to protect me or bring me something that I want or let me know that I don't have to worry about things. Now, what happens with the looking, and I don't have any real theory that I can expound upon as to why this happens. But what seems to happen with looking, is that the mere contact of this tool, the tool being the power to focus attention and move it where we want to, which we all did this morning in several occasions. We know that we have the power. That's the only thing it seems to me that we can do, really, is focus attention and move it at will from one thing to another. Most of the time it's called to things because of the context and so forth and so on, but we can arrest that and make it go where we want it to go. We probably can't hold it there forever, but we can make it do that. And it seems to me that single act, that it's a single act, it's not a lot of acts. That single act of bringing the very tool that has come into being in order to protect us from life, which is the focus of attention, the very tool that has been hijacked to that purpose for all of our lives, when we bring that tool into direct contact with the reality of what it is supposed to be protecting, the whole show collapses. It's kind of like if I take a match and put it to water, the fire goes out. Now, I don't have the education and so forth to explain to you in minute detail exactly what happens when I put that match in the water and why the fire should go out because of it, but I know that it does. If I put a match in water, the fire goes out. If I put my attention on the reality of my nature, the context of anxiety disappears. I'm using the thing that has been used to protect me foolishly from my own life to touch the reality of what it's trying to protect. That's what I think. What is the case is that the act does do just that. Now, the effects of the fear of life, which I now have taken to calling a disease. The fear of life I see to be a kind of an autoimmune disease, an existential autoimmune disease that appears to protect us but really is eating us up. And the misery and the constant burden of remembering what I should do and who I should be and how I should act and what I should think about this and what I should think about that, and oh my God, is this going to be okay? Am I ever going to get finished with this? Am I ever going to be free? Am I ever going to see what's real before I die? That apparatus continues for some time. This is not something that provides a quick fix where everything is straightened up over time. But that whole structure begins to disintegrate. Unbeknownst to us, we have no control over that. This is all cause and effect stuff going on. The creation of the structure of personality is a cause and effect consequence, and the disintegration of it, likewise, comes as a result of the ocean of cause and effect. God knows who can trace any of that stuff. But it begins to fall apart. The neurotic, habitual neurotic reactive behaviors that have been the case in the past just don't show up when they would be expected to do so. All of those kinds of negative psychological patterns of behavior and belief and so forth and so on, they begin just not to show up. There's no trumpet that announced their departure. It's just that when in a circumstance which normally would have given rise to an extremely neurotic reaction, that neurotic reaction doesn't come. And in place of this structure that we have become habituated to, a new structure begins to form. New psychological mechanisms begin to appear that have not been present before. New ways of relating to things begin to appear naturally, not as a result of us digging in our heels and determining that, okay, well, I'm going to lose 30 pounds, or I'm going to get smart, or I'm going to get enlightened, or I'm going to get God, or anything. They just show up. Unannounced. The negativity just begins to depart, and the sanity begins to show up. It's sanity is what it is. So, this process, which I am calling, I told you I call the fear of life a disease, an autoimmune disease. The psychological mechanisms that have caused us so much trouble and so much pain and misery over the years, those are symptoms of the fear of life, effects of the fear of life. Those symptoms begin to disappear, and the effects of the fear of life begin to disappear. Well, and I suspect also, although I haven't really seen examples of this, I suspect also that as we begin to recover, and the recovery period can be long or short, it seems to be pretty much idiosyncratic how it plays out. I think that I probably am the worst of all, but that, now we have more of a body of experience of people doing this, so that recovery period may very well become mitigated. We have people talking to one another about this and comparing notes and so forth. But the recovery period can be long or short, and it can be difficult or easy. And there seems to be no way to predict that. It can be fraught with all kinds of doubts and fears and worries, and am I doing it right, and all of that. But none of that matters. Those things too, they go. There's nothing whatsoever you can do to make them go. They just go. After a while, they don't show up. Because this is not a quick fix. I mean, the actual fix is very quick. The taking of the medicine is very quick. But the outcome of the curing of this disease takes considerable time in some cases to play out. And because of that, it's often the case that you may feel like things are even getting worse, that they're worse than they were before. That too is a kind of confirming sign. So we have about a half hour left, and I am pretty much finished talking for this morning. So if anybody wants to talk to me or has questions or anything they want to say in any regard whatsoever, please come up. Hi.
Good morning.
What's your name?
Linda.
Linda. Hi, Linda.
Am I on?
You are. Okay.
So, what was coming up for me is that when I was about 11 years old, I was a dancer. And kind of spontaneously during one dance session, I had a moment of, it was really outside of time and space. It was this moment of really being in touch with me. And as you were saying, it's like, at that point in time, I didn't have any reference.
Right.
And I couldn't get it across to anybody. And it actually, at the time, made my life worse, because everything I knew to be true felt like it was all a lie, and I didn't have a frame of reference. It's like I had some grounding there, but it's like life started getting a little weird. And I guess at about 16, I started going through many, many years of seeking and learning. And then about 7 years ago, I got involved with a process called an Enlightenment Intensive. And at that time, I had this direct experience of union, of truth. And since then, I've been involved in those, and I've been facilitating them. And like you said, my life has just totally shifted. My life has just totally shifted from where there's just passion, and there's a mission, and there's involvement in life, and me being in it and showing up in it and all. And I've just been thrilled to be finding your work. I just really feel it being a great compliment to the stuff that I've been doing, and something that's like more on a daily, on a daily basis. It's like people come to me and they take an Enlightenment Intensive, and they may take one a year. I'm like, okay, what do you do in between?
Yes, that's right. Well, and what I say is you live your life.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. An interesting thing to me was that, and you talked about when you were a child having this. You said direct experience of me. But then later, when you got involved in seeking enlightenment and so forth, you called it something different, something like
direct experience of truth.
Of truth, of union, and so forth and so on. I want you to consider a couple things here, okay? One thing is that your experience of you when you were a child was certainly authentic. There's no question about it. And in fact, I just went just a little aside. It is one of the techniques that a great many people have found to be of great use in this work is to try to remember an experience in childhood that you remember sufficiently vividly. It doesn't have to be an important thing, like for me it was a movie, but an experience in childhood, and then see if you can remember what it felt like to be you at that moment. And many people have found that to be extremely effective. And I, too, as a child, had some profound experiences. I would not have, I was already too contaminated to be able to speak of it as the experience of me, because I was. But I've had some profound experiences in childhood too. Now here's what I want to say. It seems to me, and I'm not trying to disparage anything you're doing, okay? But it seems to me, and this is something I've seen over some period of time now, that the thing that makes the difference in bringing an end to the fear of life once and for all, so that nothing more needs to be done about it at all, the thing that makes the difference is the intention. The fact that the looking occurs with the actual intention of getting a taste of you, not of union or, not there's anything wrong with union and those things, but the profound power of it comes into play when there is the intentional movement of attention there, the experience of you. So, I urge you to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the enlightenment intensives are that way too. I mean, what we're working on is who you are. Tell me.
Yeah, but I don't talk about who you are. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for me to speak about this without sounding like I'm saying there's something wrong with what you're doing. But I don't think there's anything wrong with what you're doing. I don't think there's wrong with anything anybody's doing. Really, it's well, maybe some. But even those folks are entirely human and susceptible to the power of this thing. But see, what I've come to see is that anything that abstracts you, like who, is an abstraction, right? Who am I? That's an abstraction. And if you see, in the common culture today, it is like forgot the word, but it's like just on everybody's tongue. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. That's not who I am. I want to be something else than that. You're not relating to me as I am. You don't know who I am. You're trying to make me somebody. The whole who I am thing is endemic in the culture. Mm-hmm. All over. You see it in commercials, sitcoms, everywhere. Serious stuff, not serious stuff. That who I am that they're talking about is the personality. That's what's being talked about in that context, is the personality. I don't like this personality, or you don't see this personality like I see it. You don't see it in the same depth and clarity that I see it. You don't see me as I really am. You don't know who I am. That's not who I am. That's all in relation to the personality. Now, I'm not saying that is your understanding of what you're doing, but what I'm trying to get to here is that the whole question, who am I, is an abstraction. Anything that sidesteps the personal pronoun is an abstraction. The personal pronoun itself is an abstraction, but it's the closest possible name for you, is you or me. Right? So, a lot of people are doing a lot of good work. A lot of people are helping people with things that relieve the misery and give it, like once a year you go to this and things kind of are okay for a while, and then you go and get recharged and so forth the next time. A lot of people are doing good work, and I really am grateful for that that's happening at all, because if it wasn't happening, I suspect we'd be much worse off than we are. But this isn't what we're doing here, and I'm not suggesting that you don't know this. What we're doing here is not that kind of work. My sense of things is that my relationship with life has just naturally and automatically readjusted itself to sanity. And it so happens that sanity is in human life is love of human life. But that's just so happens to be the case. If I seek the love of life while I'm still insane, what I get is good feeling, some respite and some help, right? But that doesn't last. So I don't know if that's helpful to you or not.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your work. And I also wanted to just thank you, because my daughter's in prison, and we sent her your book, and it's really been helpful to her.
Oh, I'm really happy.
She pretty much had a spiritual, for lack of a better term, she's pretty much had a spiritual awakening in prison, where she really got her life, and she feels that she has a mission, she feels she has a purpose, and she actually feels more sane than she's ever felt.
That's the key, is sanity, right? That's what we're after here, is sanity. We're not more than anything.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear that. I had a great spiritual experience in prison too. Mm-hmm. And God knows where that went.
Yeah.
But my sense of it is good riddance.
Yeah. Well, it's really been a teacher to me too, because nobody grows up thinking that they hope their child's going to be a prisoner, in a convict. Yeah, you have other ideas for your children, but it's like I've been able to really surrender all of that and have sanity around the whole thing, and just know that she's absolutely okay and exactly where she's supposed to be in her life, and just.
I'm glad to hear.
Yeah.
Keep in touch with me. Keep looking, okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's good to meet you. Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
What's your name?
I'm Alex.
Alex? Have I met you before?
Not in person.
Okay.
Okay, so in my life, it seems that I came upon a method of the escape you were talking about, which was smoking pot.
Pot can be used for that purpose, yes.
And so, and your discussion is like with the looking, like that's one of the neurotic behaviors I use, right? That's been happening. So to try and stop seems like an effort.
Oh, don't bother yourself with trying to stop.
So my question is basically, with the looking, you were saying the neurotic behaviors fall away.
Yes, in time.
And so just to keep looking, and then I'll notice all of a sudden that, I don't feel like smoking pot anymore.
Not necessarily. You might go to like pot even more. I have no prediction. I really, but what will go away is the neurotic relationship with it. And you may stop smoking pot, or you may really find that it's an enjoyable thing. But what will depart is the neurotic relationship with your life. And part of your life is smoking pot.
Yeah, the neurotic part seems to be like the feeling like I need to make sure I got some, or else there's going to be something bad's going to happen. That's
that's
neurotic.
Right. That'll go away. You may or may not continue smoking pot.
Uh-huh.
you see what's really clear. And you know, this stuff here actually is entirely consistent. The things that I'm talking about are entirely consistent with a whole huge body of ancient wisdom teachings that I don't refer to anymore because they failed to do what needed to be done, which was to save humanity from the insanity of being human. So I just don't pay much attention to them anymore. But it's not uncommon for people to have the insight that I can't do anything about this. That if I see, I'm smoking pot, and that must be wrong because it's associated with these neurotic experiences and neediness and so forth and so on. So I'm going to try to stop smoking pot. Well, what you're really trying to do is stop that neurotic activity, and the neurotic activity certainly does, is in relation to the smoking of pot. So that what has always been seen to be the case, which is that we don't have much of anything to say about what we're doing, actually turns out to be the case. We don't have much of anything to say about what we're doing. Really. In fact, I go so far as saying it may be that the only thing we can do deliberately is move our attention. Is that. And everything else is without the need to put any kind of a spiritual glow on it. Everything else is cause and effect. This vast ocean of existence that itself is cause and effect. The surface of it is all the effects of deep and ancient causes that we have no access to or understanding of. The cause, however, of the neurotic part of that, the neurotic component of that, is the fear of life. And that we do have something we can do about, which is to look at me, just me, the feel of me. I mean, it's unmistakable once you see it, and it's always here. So that, to me, we can use the one act we can perform to rid ourselves of the one component of our psychology that is optional and need not be here, which is the neuroses.
Yeah, I noticed that, like, in the dynamics of our relationship, there's like things that I do that are sometimes hurtful or mean, and I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore, And then the next time it happens again.
And it'll go on like that until it stops. But if you're looking, it'll stop. Really will. I mean, I'm the poster child for this, I have actually gone sane, which no one would have predicted. So, and also it's also a neurotic arising, the hatred of the neurotic arisings, right? And that too will disappear.
Judgment.
Yeah, judgment, right? That too will disappear.
Self-judgment.
Yeah. That's part of the need to make yourself perfect so you're not harmed by the wildness of this life. If I'm perfect, then I'll be okay. Or if I'm smart, I'll be okay. Or if I'm pretty, I'll be okay. Or if I'm popular, I'll be okay. Or if I'm rich, I'll be okay. If I'm powerful, I'll be okay. If I'm humble, I'll be okay.
Tried all of that. Doesn't work.
I bought all those T-shirts.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Good to see you. Anybody else? Yes. Liz, right? I'm so impressed. See what I mean? I'm getting better all the time. It really is true. My memory actually is returning too. I know that at my age it's supposed to be going in the opposite direction, but it's the case. It's good to see you, Liz.
Good to see you too, John.
I think I've got the Benjamin Button disease.
The what?
The Benjamin Button disease. See the movie Benjamin
Oh, yeah,
Button?
yeah, yeah. You go the other way.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. We'll be feeding you soon. Okay. So, I have a couple of questions. One thing is, it really rang a bell for me when you said you're looking at what you're trying to protect. Because that always seemed wrong to me. So,
Seems wrong to you to look at what you're trying to protect?
well, it seemed like I
It
was
does.
looking at the wrong
Yes,
thing,
that's
you
right.
know?
That's
because, because to me that's something it's a little lacking, insecure, kind of insular. You know, it is me, but it seems like really a personal me that nobody shares, you know?
The personal you is not the cluster of psychological attributes.
Not really.
Right. That's not the personal you.
I mean, somehow I think it is, but I don't think
Right.
it is.
No,
Because
it's
if you're
not.
saying, look at what it feels like to be you, then I'm coming up with what I'm describing to you.
Right. And this is why it's so difficult to give the instruction, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm giving it through a cloud of, previous relationships with the sensations and so forth that comprise the content of your mind, content of your consciousness. I don't think it matters that you think that. I think that it's true that attention can be, and it probably was, like kind of pulled to that cluster of psychological, infantile kind of insecurities and things of that nature. But that's not the personal you, and you know that's not the personal you. The personal you is exactly the same as everybody else. You don't change. You don't move. You have no color. You have no noise. You're just here. That's all that can be said of you, is that you're here. Everything whatsoever takes place within you. But you're not that. You are that, but not in the way you think you are.
Right. And what you have said and what I have thought is that I'm looking at what is always noticing everything.
Yes.
But when we did the process and you said, look at what it feels like to be you, now you're talking about, real feeling.
When I say that, right?
Well, it's
No, what
it's
I'm trying to-
not an obvious. It's not like a feeling I can put out there. It's more nebulous than that.
It's very subtle. The feel of you is very subtle. The reason that I stress the fact that it's a feel, is something to feel, rather than to see or understand or go into or rest at, is because you do have a certain feel to you. There's a certain very subtle sensational presence here. That's the presence of you. And it never changes. It never moves. It never does anything. It is merely you.
But then it doesn't feel personal.
The reason I say personal is because it is personal. It's the source of person. Totally the source of person.
But personal means mine,
Well, yeah, right. It's the source of person. And but I understand as I say it that there's a whole wall of assumptions about what's meant by personal, right? That tend to deflect and hijack what it is that I'm trying to get you to do. But I say it again and again because I don't know any other way to say it. I don't know any other name to give it but you, and I don't know any other quality to assign to it but person.
Okay.
Okay? Now, that's the reason I say it again and again. Hoping, and so far it seems to be effective in the long run, hoping that that'll nevertheless be heard and acted upon, even if within this psychological structure that is the Liz Klein character, even if within that structure, the knowledge of that having happened doesn't even occur. Because something hears me. You hear me. And you know exactly what I speak of when I say person.
So then,
True.
but see, then we got to go back to what I just said. And it isn't really what I'm trying to protect. Because that doesn't mean
It is.
protection.
You don't know it. It is. That's exactly what's being
Yeah,
protected.
but is
here.
that what I feel I'm trying to protect?
No, it's not what you feel you're trying to protect.
Oh, okay. See, that?
It's the feel of what you are actually trying to protect.
Wait. Maybe I'm just sleepy, but I didn't get that. It's the feel of what I'm actually trying
Right.
to protect?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not what I think I'm trying to
Right,
protect.
exactly.
Okay.
That's right.
That's where I got a little confused this morning.
The throwing up of this, all this psychological,
Mhm.
infantilism and so forth. That's just a kind of a red herring. It's
Yeah, but
dragged
I
across
wasn't
the
talking
trail.
about all the things you tick off as what's wrong with you. I just meant sort of
The
Yeah.
yucky feeling.
yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. But you are not that. That's a symptom of the fear of life.
Okay.
That'll go.
So is that what we're looking at or not?
No.
So, okay.
I mean, you may very well look at it, and it won't hurt you to look at it.
No, I want to look at the right thing because I don't want to waste my time here.
But I'm asking you to look at you.
All right. I'm
God,
sorry. I know it's really
Don't
hard
be
to
sorry.
explain, but
No,
it's,
really, that's what I'm here for, though.
yeah, that's why I'm asking this question.
Yeah, and that's why I'm wrestling with you about it.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I'm certain that you have looked. You may not know that. It may very well be the case that you think that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
It may very well be also that the very psychological mechanisms that are here to protect you are trying to protect you from even knowing that,
Right.
right? But I'm confident that you have looked. And
Okay.
so that what I would suggest is that rather than concern yourself with the fine details of what looking feels like and so forth and what you're looking at as opposed to what you're not looking for,
Mm-hmm.
that you start paying attention to the relationship between you and your life. Because it's at that juncture, the relationship between you and your life, that the change manifests.
Right. So may I ask a question on that? That was my last question. Was that every so often, well, whenever I think of it, I can just say, this is it. Whatever's going on. My questioning, whatever, that's it. And at that moment, there's no separation.
That's right.
But I have to remember to
That's
say
right.
that.
So far. But that
And it's
won't-
almost like, is that just like smoking pot? I mean,
Yes.
you know what I mean?
It may well be. But you see,
I mean,
when,
that useful.
you see, when you become like, when sanity really kind of establishes itself and the whole process of healing and recovery is pretty
Mhm.
much at the end of it, then you don't even think about whether there's separation between you and your life.
But is it even useful to remind yourself that this is perfect, just, your, discomfort, questioning, whatever's happening is it, and just feeling that relaxation of the separation being gone? Is that even useful in this process that we're talking about?
It might very well be, actually, yes.
Hmm.
I think it probably is.
Okay.
Like the capacity to feel
Mm-hmm.
that the separation is gone
Mm-hmm.
is a sign that their looking is working.
Okay.
It's a sign that the recovery is in progress. And in fact, it's those moments of clarity and sanity that are then hijacked and snuffed, smothered over
right.
by the appearance of old psychological traits and so forth. It's that very contrast that produces the sense of in some, produces considerable discomfort in their recovery from this.
Yeah.
It's that very thing. If you didn't have that to see it as what really is your nature,
Right.
then why would this be any particular different than the rest of your life when you were chasing all this stuff?
Right.
So that too is kind of a confirming sign. It's a good sign.
Okay.
And even if it triggers like even more energetic negative experiences and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
it's still a good sign. It's like any other, it's like if you're recovering from some diseases, some infections and so forth, you can go through a period of time where you feel really bad, where things get worse, in the course of recovery, and it's like that here. But this is very useful, and it's probably useful to the people who were here too. This recognition of the fact that there are moments when you see that you are in no way separate from anything. And then there are moments when that's not the case. And
Right.
it's that contrast that can produce the distress, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But the end is sure.
Hope it's soon.
Your lips to God's ear.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Okay. No, I don't want that.
Oh, no, you don't.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up for this morning. We're going to try not to wear everybody out this time. Usually these retreat meetings, man, they go on forever. I yak and talk until we're all just barely able to crawl out of the room. But I'm determined to be disciplined and limit the meetings to an hour and a half. And so far, so good. I'm looking at my clock here. And regarding my Carla, that too, so far, so wonderful. Okay? Okay, so I'll meet you back here at 3 o'clock. And I'm going to go now, and I'll see you then. I love you all. This is, God, I love these retreats. I look forward to them, and it's like, oh, God, no, not that. Oh my God, next week is that retreat. Oh, my God. But then when it's here, I just fall in love with these. Fall in love with all of you. Fall in love with our capacity to be here together like this, considering things of some importance and sanity.